The Magyars first entered European chronicles through fear. In the 10th century, their swift raids spread terror from Germany to Italy. Chroniclers in medieval Europe described them as a scourge, a new wave of barbarians after the Huns. They crossed the Alps, plundered monasteries, and challenged kings who had thought their realms secure. Yet despite their ferocity, the Magyars were not simply raiders. They brought with them a distinct culture, blending steppe traditions with influences absorbed from Slavs and Byzantines. Their nomadic tents soon stood beside wooden fortresses. Over time, these tribes began to recognize the need for stability. Constant warfare brought riches, but it also risked annihilation. Out of this crucible of conflict, medieval Hungary was being forged. The Magyars first entered European chronicles through fear. In the 10th century, their swift raids spread terror from Germany to Italy. Chroniclers in medieval Europe described them as a scourge, a new wave of barbarians after the Huns. They crossed the Alps, plundered monasteries, and challenged kings who had thought their realms secure. Yet, despite their ferocity, the Magyars were not simply raiders. They brought with them a distinct culture, blending steppe traditions with influences absorbed from Slavs and Byzantines. Their nomadic tents soon stood beside wooden fortresses. Over time, these tribes began to recognize the need for stability. Constant warfare brought riches, but it also risked annihilation. Out of this crucible of conflict, medieval Hungary was being forged. By the mid-10th century, Magyar raids reached as far as Burgundy and Spain. Yet their defeat at the Battle of Lechfeld in 955 changed everything. Otto I of Germany crushed the Magyar army, ending their dominance as raiders. Medieval Hungary now faced a choice: continue its nomadic ways or seek integration into medieval Europe. The Magyars turned inward, building fortresses and farming the land. The once fearsome horse archers began adapting to settled life. This moment was crucial in the Christianization history of the region. The Magyar tribes realized survival required diplomacy as much as warfare. They began forging ties with neighbors, marrying into noble families, and looking to Christianity for legitimacy. The foundations of a kingdom were being laid, born from defeat. In the aftermath of Lechfeld, the Magyar tribes reorganized. Leaders like Grand Prince Gessa sought stability. He invited missionaries from Bavaria, opening the way for the Christianization history of Hungary. Pagan rituals persisted, but the seeds of change were sown. Gessa himself accepted baptism, though he continued pagan practices. His decision was political, ensuring alliances with the Holy Roman Empire. This marked the first step from tribal confederation to medieval Hungary's monarchy. The Magyar elite saw that only by embracing Christianity could they claim a place among medieval Europe's great powers. From the steppe warriors rose statesmen who looked westward. Hungary's transformation from pagan frontier to Christian kingdom was underway, a journey that would climax with the reign of Stephen I of Hungary.
When Geza died, his son Wojciech inherited the leadership. Baptized Stephen, he became Stephen I of Hungary, the founder of the kingdom. Crowned around the year 1000 with a diadem sent by Pope Sylvester II, he secured Hungary's place within Christian Europe. Stephen I of Hungary built churches, invited Benedictine monks, and created dioceses across his realm. He issued laws blending tribal customs with Christian principles, a milestone in Christianization history. Under him, Hungary evolved from a confederation of Magyar tribes into a medieval kingdom recognized by both Rome and Byzantium. Stephen crushed rivals who resisted, consolidating royal power. His reign marked the true birth of medieval Hungary, a realm no longer feared for raids, but respected for faith and order.
Stephen I of Hungary understood that Christianity was more than religion, it was statecraft. By enforcing church attendance, establishing parishes, and punishing pagan rituals, he anchored his authority in faith. This was the Christianization history of Hungary in motion. Monasteries became centers of learning, spreading Latin literacy. Stephen also organized counties governed by royal officials, binding the once wandering Magyar tribes into the framework of a medieval European kingdom. Yet the process was not peaceful. Pagan uprisings erupted, but Stephen crushed them with resolve. His reign became a turning point, ensuring Hungary was no longer a nomadic outpost, but part of Christendom. In the eyes of medieval Europe, Stephen transformed Hungary into a bastion of faith at the crossroads of East and West. The early kingdom was fragile. Stephen I faced rivals both inside and outside his borders. To secure his dynasty, he designated his son Emmerich as heir. Trained in Christian virtue, Emmerich was meant to carry forward the kingdom's future. But tragedy struck. Emmerich died young, leaving Hungary without a direct successor. This uncertainty weakened the crown after Stephen's death in 1038. Pagan revolts resurfaced, and foreign claimants vied for control. Yet Stephen's legacy endured. Even in chaos, medieval Hungary remained firmly Christian. The crown he established, later known as the Holy Crown of Hungary, symbolized a kingdom that survived crises. For medieval Europe, Hungary had become indispensable, standing guard at the gateway to the east. After Stephen's death, Hungary entered turbulent decades. Pagan uprisings challenged Christianity, while foreign nobles claimed rights to the throne. Kings rose and fell quickly. Yet, despite turmoil, medieval Hungary persisted. The kingdom's resilience came from its dual identity. Magyar traditions blended with European Christianity. Castles were fortified, towns expanded, and trade routes through the Carpathian Basin flourished. The Danube River carried merchants from Germany, Italy, and Byzantium. Hungary, once a raiding frontier, became a bridge of commerce in medieval Europe. Though political struggles threatened stability, Hungary's Christian foundations held firm. The Christianization history begun by Stephen proved unshakable, even when crowns passed from hand to hand. By the 11th and 12th centuries, medieval Hungary emerged stronger. New kings consolidated royal power, restoring stability. The church expanded its role, building cathedrals and monasteries. The crown of Saint Stephen became a sacred relic, legitimizing every ruler. Hungary was no longer viewed as a land of pagans, but as the guardian of Christendom. Its armies joined crusades, and its lands hosted pilgrims bound for the Holy Land. The kingdom's position at Europe's frontier gave it unique importance. Surrounded by Germans, Byzantines, and nomads from the east, Hungary stood as both shield and crossroads. The transformation from Magyar raiders to Christian defenders was now complete. As medieval Hungary matured, its rulers fostered cultural growth. Latin became the language of administration, uniting the kingdom with Western Christendom. The court welcomed scholars, knights, and artisans. Hungarian monasteries preserved learning, while churches introduced Romanesque and Gothic architecture. The kingdom's laws, recorded in Latin charters, brought order to once tribal lands. In this fusion of East and West, Hungary carved out a distinct identity. It was no longer only a frontier, but a central player in medieval Europe. The memory of pagan Magyar raids faded, replaced by the legacy of kingship and faith. Hungary, once feared as a threat, now stood as a kingdom of stability.
The 12th century brought prosperity to medieval Hungary. Kings invited settlers from Germany and Italy, enriching the kingdom with new skills and crafts. Towns flourished, markets grew, and castles stood tall across the Carpathian Basin. Christianity was firmly rooted, but Magyar traditions still lingered in folk songs, festivals, and rural life. This blend of old and new gave Hungary its unique character in medieval Europe. The once raiding tribes had become a settled, lawful society. The Christianization history had not erased their past, but reshaped it. From the steppes they came, but in the heart of Europe they found permanence. Hungary's growing wealth and stability made it a prize and a power, drawing both envy and respect from neighboring realms.
Yet medieval Hungary's position as frontier power brought dangers. Steppe nomads, Pechenegs, Cumans, and later Mongols pressed at its borders. The kingdom became Europe's shield against eastern invaders. Kings granted asylum to some tribes, turning enemies into allies. Others were defeated in battle. This constant interaction with steppe peoples reminded Europe of Hungary's origins. The Magyars themselves had once ridden from the east, yet now they defended Christendom against it. Christianization had given the kingdom unity, and royal authority allowed it to survive as storms gathered beyond its plains. Hungary's identity was forged in this tension between steppe heritage and Christian duty, between East and West.
The Mongol invasion of 1241 nearly destroyed medieval Hungary. At the Battle of Mohi, Mongol horsemen annihilated the Hungarian army, leaving the kingdom in ruins. Villages burned, thousands perished, and for a moment it seemed Hungary might vanish as the Avars once had. Yet resilience prevailed. When the Mongols withdrew, Hungary rebuilt stronger than before. King Bela IV ordered stone castles across the land, ensuring no invader could devastate the kingdom again. This rebirth marked Hungary as a fortress of medieval Europe. The memory of its pagan past was distant, yet its struggle against the East echoed old patterns. Still, the Christian kingdom endured, carrying forward Stephen's legacy of faith and survival.
By the 14th century, Hungary entered a golden age. Under the rule of kings like Charles I and Louis the Great, the kingdom expanded its influence across Central Europe. Its wealth came from silver and gold mines, making it one of the richest realms of medieval Europe. Universities flourished, Gothic churches rose, and royal courts dazzled with splendor. Yet behind this prosperity, Hungary remained vigilant. Its frontier position demanded strength. The memory of pagan Magyar tribes had long been replaced with the image of Christian kings defending Europe's heart. From raiders to rulers, Hungary's transformation was now undeniable.
The 15th century saw Hungary rise as a major military power under King Matthias Corvinus. His Black Army, a professional force, stood among the strongest in medieval Europe. Matthias expanded Hungary's territories and turned Buda into a center of Renaissance learning. Libraries, palaces, and art flourished, blending Italian influence with Magyar heritage. This was Hungary at its height, a kingdom born of pagan tribes, now rivaling Europe's greatest monarchies.
But Matthias's reign also highlighted the fragility of power. After his death, divisions weakened the realm, leaving it vulnerable to new enemies. Still, his legacy symbolized Hungary's place as both warrior state and cultural beacon.
Hungary's destiny was shaped by geography. Nestled between East and West, it absorbed influences from Byzantium, the Holy Roman Empire, and the steppes. Medieval Hungary became a melting pot of cultures, languages, and faith. Germans, Slavs, Jews, and Cumans all found a place within its borders. This diversity enriched its culture, but also created tensions. Kings had to balance competing traditions, forging unity through Christianity. The legacy of Stephen I remained central. His crown symbolized not just royal power, but Hungary's bond with Christendom. Even as internal strife threatened, the idea of a Christian Hungary endured as the kingdom's foundation.
By the late Middle Ages, Hungary faced a rising threat, the Ottoman Turks. As the Byzantine Empire weakened, the Ottomans advanced into the Balkans. Hungary stood as Europe's front line. The kingdom's armies defended fortresses, but the pressure grew. This looming danger would eventually reshape Hungary's future. Yet in this medieval era, Hungary's story remained one of survival and adaptation. From pagan riders to Christian kings, the kingdom had constantly reinvented itself. Its resilience lay in its ability to merge heritage with necessity, to turn defeat into rebirth.
The Christianization history of Hungary was more than conversion, it was transformation. The Magyars, who once terrified Europe, became its defenders. Stephen I of Hungary's crown remained the eternal symbol of that shift. His laws, churches, and vision turned wandering tribes into a medieval kingdom. Across centuries, this kingdom endured Mongols, rebellions, and foreign threats. Always it returned to the foundation of faith and statecraft that defined its birth. Medieval Hungary was thus both unique and universal. Unique in its Magyar roots, universal in its Christian destiny.
For medieval Europe, Hungary's story offered lessons. It showed how tribes could evolve into kingdoms and how faith could unite diverse peoples. The Magyar tribes had entered the continent as feared outsiders. They ended as guardians of its Christian core. The transformation was not simple. There was blood, loss, and resistance, but the outcome reshaped Europe's map. Hungary's presence secured Central Europe against chaos, offering stability in an age of turmoil. Its crown, forged in both war and faith, became one of the most enduring symbols of medieval kingship.
Thus ended the tale of Hungary's rise from pagan tribes to a medieval Christian kingdom. Born on the steppes, the Magyars carved their place in Europe with bow and sword. Yet it was the crown of Stephen I that secured their future. In faith, they found legitimacy. In kingship, they found endurance. Medieval Hungary became both shield and bridge, a nation where East met West, where pagan memory yielded to Christian destiny. Its story remains one of transformation, resilience, and survival, the journey of a people who turned from raiders into rulers and from outsiders into a cornerstone of medieval Europe.